Hello everyone, Shintobean here playing some more Warhammer combat cards, and in this video I am going to be focusing on the Space Marine faction and talking about each warlord and which set of bodyguards I like to use with each one. So let's get right into it. I'm starting with everyone's favorite warlord, Captain Akron. Now these days I don't actually play as him at all, but if I were to play as him, I'd want to go with something fun, and what is more fun than berserkers? And Space Marines have some pretty crazy berserkers. For me, I've got this guy at level 8, the Death Company Dreadnought. This is just a crazy card, and the thing that makes berserkers so good with Captain Akron is he basically guarantees that they will survive one turn longer than they would with any other warlord. And not only that, the AI is not smart enough to take warlord special rules into account. So even if your berserkers get down to really low health, the AI will attack into them thinking that it will finish them off when they will survive because the Iron Halo, and then they'll be able to hit back really hard, and then on your next turn they'll be able to hit back for even more damage. So it can be pretty fun. I've also got Ragnar Blackmane. This guy is a really cost-effective card. Big fan of him. It took me forever to get him to this level, but I do like to use him. He has so much health for his cost. Another powerful berserker there. And then the rest are pretty much just support units. I do have Belial for Inspiring Presence. He's got a pretty decent melee attack as well. We've got this Deathwing Knight with Taunt that can help to protect your berserkers, as well as the Tech Marine at 10 points. This guy is just an amazing card. And then we've just got the Cyberwolf for some extra melee attack. So you should be able to be dishing out some crazy damage with the berserkers towards the end of the battle with this deck. So let's move on to the ranged specialist for the Space Marines, Brother Lieutenant Tolmaron. He's got a pretty straightforward special rule, just increases the ranged attack of your cards whenever you deploy another Space Marine, and it's by 25%, so of course cards like this Storm Talon gunship will benefit tremendously from this. This thing has a huge base ranged attack, and you know, just if you are lucky enough to deploy it early on, by the end of the battle this thing could be dealing enough damage to just blast through any shield pretty much. But recently a lot of these cheaper cards have also gotten their stats increased. In fact, every single one of these Space Marines, other than the Storm Talon gunship, has had their stats buffed at some point. So for this deck, we're just, of course, focusing on the range. So I've got two ranged scouts, the Infiltrator and the Ravenwing Biker. Big fan of this guy because the model is just amazing. Also able to deal quite a bit of damage. I've got two barrage units, the Terminator and the Aggressor. And then continuing with the Christmas color theme, we've got the two Hellblasters, which got their stats buffed in a pretty recent patch. So they're pretty much identical, the two of them. They both have precision shot. And then finally the Ancient with Inspiring Presence. Now this guy, if you deploy him in the late game, alongside the Storm Talon gunship, you can buff this thing to even greater heights. So that's always pretty fun. And again, with the nerf to shields, I think Tolmaron's going to be in a pretty good position. Now let's take a look at the melee specialist for the Space Marines, Logan Grimnar. Now this is one of my personal favorite warlords. I have him at level 5, and I mentioned this before, but at the lower levels his attack is a little bit lackluster, but once he hits 5, he is really dishing out some serious damage with the Furious Charge and his just regular attack, and he's got plenty of health. I got a mix of units in here. This is actually a very high initiative deck. I've got a lot of speedy cards, so you can often take the first turn. Again, we've got Ragnar Blackmane, a very powerful melee berserker. We've got Corsaro Khan. He's one of my highest level epic cards, and for 19 points he is a pretty powerful big game hunter. He can deal over 100 damage to cards that cost 40 or more. We've got 2 melee scouts. The Primaris Outrider, and actually, yes, the Cyberwolf is the other scout. And then, before I was running Belial for the Inspiring Presence, but this guy is actually just about as good, but with higher initiative. He actually has, at this level, slightly higher stats for slightly less points than Belial. His Inspiring Presence is not quite as strong, but still, I really like the model too, so started using this guy. And then we got the Tech Marine once again for the healing. And finally, this Vanguard Veteran with Target Acquired. Target Acquired, if you position it correctly, can be pretty strong with Logan Grimnar. Of course, you want to target the unit with just a little bit of health remaining and hit it with a really powerful attack. And then that cleave attack will just annihilate the card in the adjacent lane. So, Logan Grimnar, very fun warlord, one of my personal favorites. Now the other melee-centric Space Marine warlord is Hellbrecht, and since they buffed his special rule, it's actually decently strong, I think, but it's best when you are just using a couple really big cards. I would not necessarily recommend using these particular cards. They are just some of the strongest cards that have both a ranged and melee attack in my collection. So again, we've got the Blood Angels, Berserker Dreadnought. We've got this guy, the Minotaur Chapter Master, with a Furious Charge. Now this guy actually does not have a huge amount of health for his cost, so not really the greatest card. And then I got Marneus Calgar recently, got him to level 5, so he's also quite strong as well. All 3 of these guys can dish out some serious damage. You just have to make sure that you are killing the enemies with the melee attack. And once again, the Tech Marine is in here for the healing. Now the Psychic Specialist for Space Marines is of course Grandmaster Voldis. He's got all 3 attack types and Psychic Link, so you want to of course combo him with Psychers. Like Tolmaron, his special rule activates every time you deploy a Space Marine card. But with him, I mean, of course, the Space Marines have fewer Psychers than ranged units overall, and their Psychers tend to be pretty expensive, so you can't really fill your entire deck with cards as effectively as you can with Tolmaron. Now, this may not be the strongest build here, but it's one of the most fun for me, I think. I used to run the Grey Knight's Venerable Dreadnought when it had Psychic Link, but then they switched it to Precision Shot, so it doesn't really make sense to use it with Voldis anymore. Instead, I've opted for the Librarian Dreadnought with Psionic Blast. So, once this has been buffed a few times, it can deal some crazy damage every turn with that Psionic Blast. Tigurius, of course, is one of the strongest Psychers as well, and I've got him at level 5. Even after the shield nerf, he still has enough health that he can block about 100 damage per shield, so definitely a pretty durable card. And then Castellan Crow with the Inspiring Presence. You can throw him in there for some extra damage. Again, I've got the Tech Marine. Now, the ideal setup here would just be to deploy the Dreadnought and Tigurius first, and then follow it up with the Tech Marine with healing, and then once the Tech Marine dies, you can deploy Castellan Crow and buff your 2 big Psychers to pretty impressive amounts of psychic damage. So, pretty fun build, and I mean, I don't know if he'll do so well in Terra, but for just getting through matches quickly with a Psychic deck, it's a pretty fun one. And the final Space Marine Warlord and my least favorite option is Watch Captain Artemis. I've just never really been a fan of his special rule, and the fact that you can't choose where the damage goes. You just have to kind of hope you get lucky. Half the time, it doesn't really hit the thing that you want it to hit. But in the past, he was actually so weak that it was really hard to win any matches with him, and they ended up buffing the stats on the Warlord by a fair amount, and they also increased the damage dealt by his special rule. but I still don't really enjoy playing as him, and I don't honestly know what sort of build would be the best. I just sort of filled this deck with bodyguards that I enjoy playing as. I like Barrage, so I put 4 Marines with Barrage in there. We got the Terminator, the Aggressor, the other Aggressor, and the Centurion Devastator, who I haven't used in ages because he was just so bad, but they finally decided to buff him. Once again, we got the healing from Brother Jansen. We got the Inspiring Presence here, and the oddball in this deck is the Dread Knight. Of course, you don't have to use this card necessarily, but just to change things up a bit, this thing has all 3 attack types and is able to counter against psychic or melee decks. So let me know if you have a good build that works with Watch Captain Artemis. I'm curious to see what other people are running with him. But that's it for the Space Marine Warlords. Let me know if you use similar builds as myself, or if you go with something entirely different. But that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.